Come join Melissa and her guests on the Chats from the Blog Cabin podcast. From North Carolina, this podcast will have you feeling like you've known these folks for years. Listen in as they chat about life, culture, current events, and more, all with a special Southern flair. Curl up with your favorite beverage and get ready to be entertained. Tune in now for a unique experience that's fun and insightful.
Hey y'all, welcome back to another episode of Chats from the Blog Cabin. You know, the show where I virtually invite people into the blog cabin to chat about life. And today we're chatting with Beatrice, who is a sought after business leadership consultant and speaker. She's a storyteller. She's also a book author and a first generation Nigerian American. So welcome, Beatrice. Well, you have a lot of titles. So welcome to the show. Tell us a little bit about yourself before we get into what you do.
Oh my God. Well, I live in Minneapolis, Minnesota, born in New Orleans, Louisiana. And I've been here for quite a few years now. I traveled, let's see, what a little bit about me. Nigerian American, first generation, the oldest of four. So there's a lot of lessons and there's a lot of like nuggets I learned along the way being the oldest and like, you know, doing a lot of things as you can see in my work that I do. So, yeah, I love to travel. I'm a humanist. People fascinate me and their behaviors. So, and yeah, I think, that's all apart from like all the work stuff, but we're going to get into it.
Yeah. So let me first get in. You grew up and you were born in New Orleans and now you live in Minnesota. What a change. I mean, what a, first of all, culture change. And then second of all, what a change in the weather.
Yes. It is a huge change. It was night and day. It took me a little bit to get used to. My parents were down there and my dad moved up here and then my mom moved and a few years later I moved. I was like, well, she was getting sick. Like there was a lot of things happening in my family. So I said, okay, let me just move closer to them. And and like the rest was history. I just got used to it. I noticed that a lot of Minnesotans do not know how to drive. So like it was very interesting on how a lot of people are in a ditch and they're like, oh yeah, you know, I'm in a ditch once a year. I don't want to be in no ditch. Like I'm gonna try to figure out. So like people like know when in the snow, people speed a lot. Mm-hmm. And like especially if they have these the trucks and like these Jeeps and everything. I'm just like, you could just do like, you could spin off the wheel and stuff. It's really funny. It's fascinating. Yeah.
And there you talk about, once again, you're a people person. You like to observe people's behavior. So that totally goes with what you do.
Yes. It's very fascinating. It's very fascinating because people are not even aware of what they do and how they come off. That's what even makes it even more fascinating.
So what made you get interested in watching people and to learning how people behave the way they do?
Well, I have been in experiential marketing. Experiential marketing is my core background. Been in it for the last 20 years, almost over 20 years now. And doing events, production, working with different types of people on campaigns in the field and in the office, you start to see a lot of patterns, but not only patterns in the workplace personally, but I started to see a lot of patterns with my families, my close friends, get into relationships, the same relationships in different ways, or like they're acting a certain way. Even me, I would act a certain way and I don't know. And I had to start to self-audit myself. So I noticed a lot of people around were unaware of what they do. And if you tell them, they're like, I didn't realize it. And like, you know, I always say that you have to curate things for people to understand. So me being an effective communicator and being in marketing and like doing a lot of PR and like working with people, it was just naturally birthed. It was naturally something I birthed. Yeah.
And then it led you to writing the book, Mindless Behaviors, Breaking Through Unseen Barriers.
Yes.
So, wow. A lot of people will people watch and watch people's behavior and figure out the patterns, but not go as far as to write a book about it. So what made you want to write the book?
Because I feel like people people have a lot to say, but they don't know how to say it. And so I'm the person that will say things that people are thinking. Like if like the reason why is because I noticed that we're not able to articulate ourselves in so many ways, right? We're kind of like chastised and repressed in many different facets of our life. We can talk about social pressures, political stance. We can go all day with that one. Family, like friends, like, an average person can't really talk to a certain group of their friends because they feel like they're going to be judged. That's crazy to me, right? How did we get here? Why are these topics and these experiences happening? And I feel like there is a disconnect. So the more close somebody is to somebody, it seems like the more disconnected they are. And like the less close they are, it's almost like they have nothing to lose. So it's pretty interesting how that works.
Yeah, that is so true. I mean, but what made you decide to say, okay, I'm going to share my knowledge with the world with this book?
People need to know. People need to become aware. And I feel like it was important. I feel like it's wreaking havoc in our life and in our relationships with ourselves and the people around us. And I feel like it was just very important that this message get out.
So what are some of the steps that we can do? Because you're like I still see that pattern with myself where you said where the people closest to you are the ones you can't talk to, the ones you can't say things to because you're so fear of being judged. So what are some of the steps you can do to overcome that?
So what I notice is, for me, I'm just going to tell you what worked for me. And this is an example. I always say this is the starting point, and then you can become creative in how you approach things. I start to step back and really listen. I've always been a listener, but really listen to my voice and really observe my behaviors. However, a lot of reasons how you can shift it and how you can, the tip is like take an issue that is pressing in your life, something that is knowing at you and like that you're in chaos at. Take that and shift lanes. So I'm saying that, like, I always say that, like, the only way our best teachers is our failures.
Mm.
Yeah, our best teachers are our failures. And so when we're in chaos for a reason. If there's a crisis happen, we're in a crisis for a reason. Is that like there is something within you that is basically amplifying this crisis, and like you're not seeing it, or you're just ignoring it, right? So what I tell people, one tip is like think about something that is really troubling you in your life. Everybody have an issue. Everybody have an issue. Take that one issue and shift lanes. Look at it from another perspective. Are you looking at it from another lens versus the lens that you have? Because sometimes your lens is biased.
Oh, I love that. A lot of people don't see their own biases though. So
they don't see their own biases, but I feel like they need to be massaged a little bit because a lot of people are their tunnel vision. No, I was just talking to somebody. The older we are, the more or less creative we are. The younger we are, we are more creative. We're young, free. I feel like there's this mental health. There's this ideology out there that we can be creative as we get older. And so like, that's for the little kids, right?
Yeah.
I feel like in order for us to evolve our world, we need to basically hone in each stage of it. So like, what does that look like? What would 16-year-old me would have done? 16-year-old me would have found a solution like this.
Yeah.
I'm open, right? Let's go back to that open state, not the young state. We don't want to be young. You want to be your age, but in a more evolved way.
Yeah. And it's like changing your whole mindset too, because you're right. Society has drilled in us so many things that you're expected to do at a certain age that when you get to that age, you're like, okay, I can't do this. I can't, like you said, be 16-year-old and open with the way I think, or be creative because society's telling me I got to get a job. I have to work the job till I die, and that point.
Yes. Yeah, and I think that hinders creativity because like there's bills, there's like all of these responsibilities, right? Some of these responsibilities are irrelevant. We make them relevant because we feel like that's what we have to do. But do we really have to do it? I feel like I have more freedom when I was younger than than I'm now. And I'm like, my parents are not over me. I don't have no chains on my hand. And I restrict myself more than when I had all these rules that I break. Like, how does this make any sense? Like, yeah, it's mind-blowing how we restrict ourselves and restrict our minds to thinking that this is the only way to live.
That is so true because, I mean, I know I talked to several friends and several people, and they say, yeah, I can't go do this. I'm like, why can't you go do this? Because I'm so scared, or they've caught themselves in such a mindset that something bad's going to happen if they go do something creative. Like, for instance, for me, a couple of years ago, I went, not bungee jumping. What is the word? Oh, what is that called? It's not bungee jumping, but it's the
skydiving.
No, it's
ziplining.
Ziplining, yes, I went ziplining. I'm scared of heights. I do not know where that fear came from, but I'm so scared. But I'm like, I only live once. I'm gonna do it and do it now or never. I got up on the zipliner and I was like, okay. I looked down. I was like, oh, I should have looked down. But I was like, God, if I die, please let me go quick. And I just took off. Yeah. And I completed the whole course.
I remember I love heights, so I'm like a little monkey like that. Like let's go, let's go do it. Like, yeah. There are many moments I'm like, well, I guess I'm here. Let's keep going.
Yep.
We have to. I feel like we don't live. I feel like we suck the soul out of life.
Yep. I totally agree. To suck the fun out of it. So what happens when we carry that baggage that we already have and we're in a relationship with somebody else who has baggage? What happens to that? Because our baggage kind of gets caught up in with their baggage as well.
The challenges is in relationship is the lack of acknowledging that these emotions and these baggages exist. Understanding the boundaries, because I don't think relationships have appropriate boundaries, even friendships or anything. Understanding the boundaries. And most people lie in relationships. Oh, I'm going to lie to protect. I'm just protecting you. I love you so much. And I protect you. But it's almost like it's very conditional. There is no like level of unconditioned. Granted, I'm not talking about most of the relationships, but an average relationship, let's be real. There are people where if we can say it, there's a lot of lonely people in the world. A lot of people that feel that they can't talk to a lot of anyone, and then they infuse like therapy, and a lot of therapy is great and everything, but like, isn't the community supposed to be pretty therapeutic as well? Like, why are we not leveraging our environment? So I feel like in relationships, we're already in a box. Now we put ourselves in many boxes, right? And next thing you know is like that person is not acting the way they were supposed to act. They're not, then they get, some relationships are stuck in time. Oh, well, I don't see, when I met them, they were like this, and this. And that's basically a symptom to not really understanding the evolution of a person.
Yep.
Okay? And I don't think relationships evolve in that way. So the challenges come of not being as communicative, and that baggage that they have is not really even acknowledged that they have it. I'll give you one example. I was chatting with a friend slash colleague, and we were talking about how people that just get out of relationships,
Mm-hmm.
they have this level of freedom, right? And so what happens is, I know this, I see this a lot, and I don't understand this. They have this level of freedom. They have this effort moment, right? And they're doing everything they want. They're telling everybody everything. They don't care, right? So then they meet this person, and they already right off the bat says, "Yeah, I'm not looking for anything. I'm just free. I'm just like not looking to settle down and stuff." And sometimes this other person communicate and say, "Okay, I'm free." Well, okay, well, if you're not looking at nothing, no strings attached. All of a sudden, we're human. We start to attach, right?
Yep.
And it starts to be complicated because one person catches feelings. What happens? Well, since they labeled it as a rebound relationship, they feel like it's temporary, it doesn't go anywhere. So one person catches feelings, the other person says like, well, it's just a rebound, it's a fling anyway. They move on to the next relationship. This person is now like heart's breaking or whatever, right? They move on to the next relationship, to the same type of relationship before that broke their heart. So now this person said, I'm ready to settle down. They go to the same relationship that broke their heart. It means that it wasn't working. If your heart breaks from this relationship, so now you found this middle ground. You found your happiness. You found your freedom. But you said it. You made it up in your mind that it was temporary. Break it up. Now saying that I'm in a nut. I'm ready for a relationship, to go right back into the same relationship that broke your heart the first time.
Yep, I've seen that too.
So, are we really ready for anything? Are we saying that we're ready because we have this list of expectations?
You got it right. You nailed it right on the head. I think a lot of divorce rates would be lower if people took out those expectations and realized what they're ready for and what their own expectations, not expectations that society, parents, family, friends, or whoever put on us, but our own expectations. Make a list of what we want.
Yeah. So that pattern goes on and on and on, right? Not saying that like everybody does it. There are people that are smart enough to realize, oh, I'm free. Oh, I really like this person. Oh, wow, wait, I didn't expect this relationship, and they end up with them. I've seen quite a few, and they're still married, and they're like really still in love. But there's a lot of people that go right back to the same thing. Part in the same. That's an average relationship.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a pattern.
Wow.
So is that really the rebound?
Actually, I honestly think that the relationship they went back to would probably be the rebound relationship. If you really, in your mind,
the next relationship after the rebound is the real rebound relationship.
Yep.
The one that they thought they ready for.
Yep. We need to take a brief commercial break, but we'll be right back to chat because it's so much thought provoking right here. So we're going to take a brief commercial break.
Yes.
People welcomed me and they knew the pain of the journey that we'd been on because they'd been there too.
Other Parents Like Me is an online community, peer-led, for parents with kids struggling with mental health and or substances.
It's a space that's safe. Feels like I can actually share what's going on.
We offer 15 daily support groups per week and live speaker talks on Thursdays, as well as a monthly expert panel.
We also have a resource hub that has a toolkit This includes over 1,000 articles, podcasts. There's a glossary with the most recent and relevant terms. And we have a directory that's been vetted.
The overwhelming feeling when we're sitting in a meeting and I'm telling my story and I see others shaking their head, tears falling, they understand this roller coaster and they're along for the ride.
And we are back with Beatrice talking about mindless behaviors. And some of the things that I want to talk about, your press person sent it to me, was about the mindless behaviors behind the violence, shooting, behind our political system, everything else. Let's talk about society's mindless behaviors.
Yes. Wow, there was a lot. There's a lot to unpack there. What direction do you want to go?
Whichever direction you want to lead.
Oh my God. Society rise. We make the same mistakes over and over again. There's an insanity cycle going on.
Mm-hmm.
So when I say, in a sense of an insanity cycle, I always say that like there are more people and they're not taking accountability. We're seeing a lot of violence because people's needs are not being met,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
There's an increase of everything, but there's a lack of leadership guidance, right? And I always say leaders are only relevant in societies of chaos. So fitting, right? I really don't think that we have the appropriate leaders in place that is making an impact that are sustainable, right? And the insanity cycles that we tend to be in is because there is no lack of accountability, and doing the right thing, doing the right thing is not profitable.
Yep.
It's not profitable to pay everybody's bills when you lock them in a house for almost 2 years.
Yeah.
But it's profitable to get them IRS checks that eventually they had to basically pay back,
Mm-hmm.
and loans that eventually they would have to forgive or pay back in a long time. That's profitable. What's not profitable is just wiping their debts off.
Yeah.
And Band-Aid versus roots. I talk about it in my book. So we have a lot of Band-Aids.
We do have a lot of Band-Aids in this country. A lot of Band-Aids. I mean, even as far as going to the mental health crisis, a lot of people don't think there's a mental health crisis in America. And there is there is a huge mental health crisis. But people don't place priority on trying to get people the help they need.
I feel like there is a gaslighting process going on. We're constantly gaslighted by the media. We're overwhelmed with negativity on a regular basis. The programming, I feel like there is a programming that is happening that like every time you see something so negative on the news and everything, it's almost like it gives you this sense of hopelessness, right?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like there's some level of keeping people in that mental cage, right? And like we can go back to 2020. I was like, how ironic of all those streams of events to mysteriously happen in 1 year. Mm-hmm. Really we really have not unpacked 2020.
Yeah.
There was a lot of stuff that happened.
A lot of stuff.
And a lot of stuff that like, a lot of mindless behaviors, a lot of mental, emotional gaslighting.
Yep.
Of course we're going to have an increase of mental health. And when you basically turn on the TV and like you're literally carving our hearts out on a dinner table on a daily basis with negative things that like some of them is not even relevant. And then others is like, wow, I can't believe this is videotaped. Wow, I can't believe human beings can be treated like this.
Yes. 100% agree to that.
And then they wonder why we have violence, why we have all types of violence, why we have like all of these different aspects. And the leaders is like, it's because of this, that this is happening. It's because of that is happening. I said, no, it's because of all of us that all of this is happening.
Mm-hmm. You got to take blame. Everybody has a part in this. Everybody has to take their part of the blame.
Yeah, it's a society. It's societal. So like the shootings, like we wrote a newsletter on. I feel like it's not really taken care of.
Mm.
And I think that there is like a provoking going on. It's like literally when you bring somebody to the brink of hopelessness,
Mm-hmm.
and the brink of thinking that this is okay. This is the outcome to that. People's needs are not being met. They're highly unstable, and then they're not financially well off. And like all of this, there's so many things, right? And some of this, I'm going to say this, I hate to say this, and then we have a medical emergency. I hate to say this, but all of this could be easily solved.
Mm-hmm.
People keep saying all of these problems are complex. No, they're not. They're not complex. Well, I mean, the number one is not really that. The number one, pay everybody's bills off. You locked everybody in the house. You basically forced a lot of people into foreclosure, but yet you refuse to wipe people's debt off.
Yeah.
You putting them on these programs. You know these programs don't work.
Yep.
We have a housing crisis. 8 billion people can't own a house. They can't own homes, right?
Mm-hmm.
But having stable household, stable, housing, is a little bit of a necessity for an average human being.
For sure. 100% for sure.
So why is that not fixed?
I think a lot of things is because people just want to overlook people because they're not like you said, mindless behaviors. Society is taught that like people that don't have house and the people that live on streets, they are basically, they're no good, even though they don't spend the time to sit down and actually have a conversation with them.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a little challenging. And like we have a mental health crisis and everything like that. I know that mental health, it's been, the buildup has been actually generational than we think. It's more embedded in our system. We actually do a lot of like insanity things, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so like there's no accountability and everything. I feel like that's the most complex challenge that we are facing is the mental health crisis, is because people, we have been conditioned to be a certain way. Mm-hmm. And like trying to break through that takes time.
So what can one individual do? Because I know a lot of people sit back and they think, oh, well, I'm just one person. I can't do anything. I can't affect change, but we can. So what is one thing that we can all do today? Like how we can change our behaviors today?
Start to pay attention of what you do. Like start to become self-reflective and like check on people. Check in with yourself. Are you okay? And if you're not okay, reach under, like really emotionally regulate yourself and start to say, why am I feeling this way? And start to really self-audit. I feel like we need to start checking in with ourselves on a regular basis. Is this what I want? Do I really want this? Do I not really want this? What do I really want out of my relationships? One of the things that I noticed with 2020, I always say 2020 clear vision, is that the world stopped and people actually started to reflect, like, what am I doing with my life? This might not like this person I married. Hold up. Well, wait, my kids are not well. Like, I hate my job. Like that's a lot of the patterns that the thought processes that people are even saying out there, right? And people are starting to reinvent themselves. And I feel like leaning in more on who we want to be and how we want to show up and what we want to become for ourselves, and for the people around us is a good starting point. Who are we? Who am I?
Yeah, that is so true. Especially when being a former teacher, I would laugh every time I would talk to a parent who had to homeschool their kids or had to do the assignments with the kids, and they would get frustration because their kids weren't working when they were at home. And I'm like, now you know what teachers go through every single solitary day. And now you have a new appreciation for teachers, because honestly, they don't have it easy. And they're probably the least paid people on the planet. And they're the ones that are affecting the change the most. So if you've got a teacher who really doesn't love her job, it's just there because she got a degree and she doesn't know what else to do, then that's going to trickle down to the students that she teaches as well.
And when we talk about the education system, that is another one that can be a quick fix too. That could be easily fixed. It's just now we just have people that are stuck in their ways. The education system, I feel like these are guardians of the next generation. Mm-hmm. We're paying them pennies. We're putting our hands in the lives of people that got a degree and just say, okay, well, I guess I go into teaching. I like kids. Maybe that's work. Like there is like that too. Mm-hmm. And for the fact that teachers, the ones that are producing the doctors of the world, the ones that are producing a lot of these professors and a lot of these professional people out there, are getting the short end of the stick, especially from K to 12. Mm-hmm. It's mind-blowing to me. And I think that it needs to be that teachers are six figures and highly competitive. Yeah. It's a highly competitive field. It needs to be one of the most highest competitive fields on the planet. You just don't have anyone be a teacher. You have to gone through a lot of ups, and you have to gone through a lot of tests. Yep. And yeah, I can go on all day. It's really jaw dropping. And I'm like, if we want to evolve, I feel like we need to invert that, work on that part.
100%. And you think about it, whenever there's a cut to the budget, the first thing that's always cuts is education. Yeah. And I just don't understand that.
Because the best way to keep people in chaos is to have people you need a very ignorant system. I'll say this like this. If we are evolved system, evolved species, a planet, if we have a lot of the knowledge, the food is really food is one of the main fuels for us to we have to live on a regular basis. They're genetically modifying the food. Mm-hmm. And we're saying, yes, that's okay. Yep. They're putting stuff, carcinogens in it. There's it's mind blowing what is being passed for being okay to feed a human being. Yeah. We're wondering why we have a lot of the cancers and diseases that we have today. We're not built. This system was never built. It was never built to have a human being thrive. It was actually built to cage one.
Ooh, that's a great comparison. That's a great way to think about it, because nobody wants to be put in a cage. So that's the way we can break out our mindless behaviors and make effective change.
Yeah, but we were born in cages. We were born into cages. We were born into a cage.
Mm. Wow, there's a lot of stuff that we've unpacked. But let's talk about blame versus accountability, because a lot of times people think they're the same thing. They think oh, I'm being held accountable because I'm the person to blame for all this that happened, or like if a situation goes down in the family, there's always that one person. You said you were the oldest of four. I'm the youngest of four. So there's always that one person in the family that you get blamed for, that everything, oh, it wouldn't happen because so-and-so showed up late, or, that blame. So let's talk about the blame versus accountability.
I feel like when something happened, I feel like we don't appropriately know how to take responsibility. And like, apart from with the blame and accountability, is like, all right, if this situation, if this chaos is happening and everything, what part did I play in the outcome of what we're seeing today? And all you're doing is apologizing for your part, right? Mm-hmm. And the blame is that finger pointing, like, yeah, they did this, they did that, they did this. See that in a lot of the relationships, like, oh yeah, he broke my heart. What happened that it got to that level of heartbreak, right? You always hear the girl story or the guy story, but never the other end.
Uh-huh.
The one that speaks the loudest, especially for the blame, the one that speaks the loudest is the one that won the hearts.
Mm-hmm.
The accountability aspect is most people standing in their truth, and it's like, okay, I accept responsibility for these X, Y, and Z actions. The challenging part about it is I don't see leaders doing that.
Yep.
So if we don't see leaders doing that, how are the rest of the population going to do that? They know they're going to be like, the problem is this, and this. Everybody talks about the problem. Mm-hmm. Nobody talks about real sustainable solutions to anything. And not only sustainable solution, understanding how we are contributors to the problem that we are creating today. Just like everything that we talked about. We still live in this society. We still wake up, we still eat, we still go to work, and we still go to all of these systems knowing that it doesn't work.
Yep.
So we can complain all day long about it. You're still waking up and you're still an active participant in the chaos.
Yeah,
that's the problem that we're struggling, that everybody are active participants. And that's kind of what I'm trying to say. We need to basically, that responsibility is not only standing in your truth, but understanding and basically understanding the part that you took and you contribute to the situation that is going on at hand.
Yeah, that's so true. And I don't think a lot of people think about that. Mm-hmm. Because a lot of people think that they can't affect change, so they're not going to do anything. That's actually contributing to the part of how society's gone down, because they feel like they have no say in anything, so they're not going to say anything.
Yeah. Yeah. And I feel like that's the real challenge, right? We know that we have a vice shooting crisis. If we get to the reason why a lot of these shooters are happening, the root of it is mental health, or their needs are not being met.
Mm-hmm.
If you get to the basis of it, if you strip it down, it's a mental issue. It's really the first one, and their needs are not being met on any level.
That is so true. And when you get the political, is they're not taking accountability because they're so busy fighting with each other. They're not doing what's good for the population.
So they come up with Band-Aid solutions, like, let's take people's guns away. And I'm like, no, like you have a system that had guns for decades. That's not the problem. Let's be practical. Let's be real. Like, no, that's not the problem. The problem is mental health and the people's needs are not being met.
But I think when people get to the mental health, they don't want to even touch that subject, because that subject has been such a taboo subject for a long time. Correct.
An average person have a mental health issue. If we're living on this inner planet, on this international level, we all have mental health issues. We are subjected to a lot of chaos on a regular basis. Not everybody. People's lives are not unicorns and fairies. From the rich all the way down to the dirt poor, we're struggling.
Yep.
We're struggling. So that's really the challenge that that's the reality that we all had to face. Everybody has trauma. Everybody is just literally going through the emotions. Maybe there is a percentage that people's lives are beautiful, but they're still working through themselves too.
Mm-hmm.
They're still trying. We're all trying to figure it out. We're all trying to walk each other home. And like this hierarchy of I'm better than you and having these godlike complex to say that I know more than you or you know more than me is putting people in these boxes that it does not need to exist.
That is so true. Now, what can we do to identify these mindless behaviors and get over these mindless behaviors so that we can affect change?
Well, one thing is, what can we do for ourselves to start to self-audit ourselves and start to become aware of asking ourselves why. Externally, what can we do is start to listen to people.
Mm-hmm.
Like really start to listen. You'll learn a lot when you listen.
Yep.
Open your world. There's a world that exists. There's a world that exists outside. There's a world that exists around you. But there's nothing like, as far as something internally, everything, we are perfect. Everything is within us. We are perfect. There's nothing wrong with us. We're just subjected to experiences that are unfavorable. And we need to understand how to navigate them. So understanding who we are, self-ordering ourselves, but basically start to be observant of the environments of where we live within. It's another thing. Start having these conversations. Lean into the uncomfort. If people is upset, that's fine. That's fine. Confront it. Not run and avoid it. Start really asking the right questions and start listening to people.
I think you hit the nail on the head. Is we need to start listening. So many people are like, I can't communicate with a person. It's because they're so worried about what their next step's going to be that they're not actively listening to what the other person's saying so that they can maybe learn from their story. Everybody's story is different. Your story is different from my story, even though before we went on, we both learned we like essential oils. But your story and how you got to where you are and where you be, and where I am is totally different.
Yeah, it is. It is. And we need to understand we're human beings, and we are going to make mistakes. We are going to fail. But like, we can't live there. You can sit there, but not live there. And I feel like we live there. We live in our pains and we live in our past, and we're trapped by our future. But we forget the present still exists.
I love that right there. That's the greatest soundbite ever. I love that. So our time is almost up. Is there any one little nugget that you want to leave us with before we talk about where we can find your book and where we can find you at?
I feel like the biggest nugget that I leave people with is start to become curious. Become curious about your life. Who are you right now? And what you want to become.
That is so profound. Now, where can people find you at?
Oh, yeah, you can go to mindless-behaviors.com. You can buy my book from my store. I also I do have a blog up. I do write. You can follow me on Twitter. Not on Twitter. I'm not on Twitter yet. Instagram, Facebook, and I'm gonna start doing a lot more, having a lot more activities through the year. So it's gonna be fun.
Activities, like what kind of activities?
So like I'm going to have like an event. It's going to be a local event here, but like different online events, and like a little bit like pop-ups. I'm going to do a lot of like book reading pop-ups and like having really cool conversations with people as well. I also, another thing that I'm doing is like from my consultancy end, I do have like a business problem solving sessions that I'm having groups come in to, like, they have a problem with their business and like, or and challenges they have. I have multiple sessions coming up that people can be in a group, and like we're gonna work through some of those challenges together. So those sessions are on my website, my mirrorinc360.com website. Yeah.
That one? Well, it's the blog, but that's
Yeah. Yes. So yeah, if anyone buy a copy of my book, please leave a review, especially on Amazon. It's great.
Which I put the Amazon link up right there.
Yeah.
Beatrice, I want to thank you so much for coming on and for opening up our minds for these mindless behaviors and having this conversation, because I think it's important that we listen to each other, that we learn from each other, because like I said, and we both said, our stories are different, but that we can still learn something from each other's stories.
Yeah. Yes, definitely.
So guys, I will put in the show notes everywhere where you can find Beatrice, as well as where you can find her book. And I'm hoping that she writes more books and she will come back on and share more, because I think this is the only way that we can affect change, is when we identify these behaviors in ourselves, and then we can go out and affect change in the world, because I think everything starts with at home. Correct?
Yeah. Yes, it does.
So guys, we will see you on the next chat from the Blog Cabin. Bye.
Bye.